Tell me, Ava, how do you expect a man to love a woman who gave her body to another man? She froze in the doorway, like she'd just slammed into a brick wall, eyes swollen, hands shaking, breath broken. Beckett, why don't you want me anymore? I stared at her the way a man looks at a stranger wearing his wife's face. The features were familiar, but the soul behind them, gone. The silence between us weighed more than the truth she'd been hiding. So I leaned back, steady, calm enough to scare myself, and I said, "Because you gave away what was mine." Her whole world fell apart in that moment. Mine already had. If you've ever felt a betrayal like that, follow this story. There's a lot she didn't expect me to say next. People think a marriage dies in one moment, with one sentence. That's a lie. Ours started dying 3 months before that night in the doorway. It began quietly, the way winter creeps into a house with bad windows. We still shared a bed, shared a bathroom, shared a last name, but somewhere along the way we stopped sharing a life. We moved around that Lakeview apartment like polite roommates. Hey, how was your day? Busy. The TV was always on, but nobody watched it. Plates clinked, doors closed, emails got answered. We were doing everything a married couple does, except actually being a married couple. Sometimes Ava would reach for my arm on the couch, and I'd shift just enough that her hand slipped away. She thought I was tired, grumpy, going through something. The truth? I'd already started grieving my marriage while she thought I was just distant. I was mourning us, in silence. I'd lie awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out when my wife had become someone I didn't recognize. And right about then, the late nights at her office started. At first, I didn't think much of the late nights. Everybody in this city is swamped and on a deadline. That's just Chicago life. But then it changed. New perfume, new outfits. Ava started dressing like she was going somewhere people actually looked at her, not just to sit behind a laptop under fluorescent lights. Her phone stopped living on the coffee table. It started living face down, glued to her hand. Bathroom breaks got longer, showers got longer, notifications lit up the screen and she'd tilt it away like it was a reflex. I told myself, she's stressed. She's just trying to feel good about herself again. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. But there's a special kind of feeling a man gets when something is wrong in his house and no one will say it out loud. It sits in your chest like a stone. You can't prove anything. But you were my wife. But I started feeling like I was dating a stranger who only visited the apartment. And then came the first night she said, "Don't wait up. I'll probably be home late." That was the night everything really began. It happened on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic, no thunder, no storm, just our Lakeview kitchen, a half-empty glass in the sink, and her laptop glowing on the table. Ava had gone to bed early, said she was exhausted. I was on my way to turn off the lights when I saw it. Her screen still unlocked, cursor blinking like it was waiting for me. I didn't snoop, I just reached to close it, and a message popped up in the corner. "Last night was amazing. When can I see you again? Jason Cole." My heart didn't just sink, it dropped straight through the floor. My hands started shaking, but I clicked anyway. Open. Scroll. There it was. Weeks of texts, jokes, inside references, late night, can't stop thinking about you. All the intimacy that used to belong to us, handed over like it was nothing. And then I saw it. The Riverside Hotel, room 412. On a night she told me, "Don't wait up. I'm working late." In 1 second, my whole marriage snapped into focus. I wasn't crazy. I was cheated on. And the man I thought I was changed that night. My first instinct? I wanted to flip the kitchen table, march into the bedroom, shove the laptop in her face, and scream, "Explain this, Ava!" I pictured it. Her bolting upright, tears, excuses, me shouting until my throat burned, the neighbors hearing every lie spill out. But I didn't move. I just stood there in the kitchen, the fridge humming, the clock ticking, those messages staring back at me like a confession. Then I did something that surprised even me. I closed the laptop, gently, like I was tucking a child into bed. I turned off the light and walked down the hallway. She was already asleep, breathing slow, curled up on the side of the bed like always. I lay down next to her, inches away, eyes wide open in the dark. She slept peacefully. I felt like I was drowning in plain air. That night, I realized I was capable of something scarier than rage. Quiet. I didn't wake her. I didn't say a word. I decided to let her keep lying, just long enough for me to see exactly who she really was. The next morning, you'd have thought nothing was wrong. Sun coming through the blinds, coffee smell in the kitchen, Ava humming under her breath. "Hey, babe," she said, like she hadn't just blown our life apart in a hotel room. "Want your coffee black or with cream?" She poured my mug, kissed me on the cheek, laughed about some stupid email from work. Same woman, same kitchen, completely different reality. I watched her grab her bag, slip on her heels, check her phone one last time. "Don't work too hard," she smiled and walked out the door. And all I could think was, I'm the only idiot in this story who's not supposed to know the ending. When the door clicked shut, I didn't cry, didn't punch a wall. I went back to the kitchen table, opened her laptop. This time I didn't pretend it was an accident. Messages, emails, calendar invites. I dug into cloud backups, synced accounts, old notifications she thought were gone. The more I saw, the calmer I got. A cold kind of calm. I'm not confronting you yet, I thought. I'm going to see how far you're willing to go. That morning I stopped being just a husband. I became a witness. Once you cross that line, you can't go back. I became methodical, almost clinical. I started printing. Every message that crossed a line got a page, dates, times, little notes in the margins. Wednesday, late client meeting. Screenshot, Riverside Hotel, 8:47 p.m. Friday, drinks with coworkers. Screenshot, can't wait to taste you again. I made a folder on my computer. Ava, truth. Then another one in the cabinet. Hard copies. Paper doesn't accidentally delete itself. Every time a new notification from Jason popped up, I grabbed a screenshot. They talked about work just enough to make it look innocent. The rest? Inside jokes, private nicknames, plans. I checked her Uber receipts, hotel confirmations, credit card charges. All of it lined up like a timeline of betrayal. Wednesdays, Fridays, patterns. After a few days, the stack of paper was thick enough to feel heavy in my hand. I flipped through it, page after page, my marriage documented like evidence in a case file. I looked down at it and whispered, "You really thought I'd never see this, didn't you?" It's a strange thing, holding proof that the person you love is capable of all of it, and knowing you're only just getting started. That's the thing about finding out. Life doesn't stop for you. I still had to clock in, sit in traffic, answer emails. At work, I joked with my team, fixed servers, nodded through meetings. Nobody knew I was running a crime scene in my head the whole time. Then I'd drive back to that Lakeview apartment and put on my role, the tired husband who needs some space. I'm gonna turn in early. Long day. That's all. Ava got busier, more projects, more deadlines, more quick glances at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Sometimes she'd shower the second she got home. Sometimes she'd be extra sweet, like she was trying to balance a scale I couldn't see. The worst part wasn't the lying. It was lying in bed next to her, looking at the woman I loved, knowing there was a good chance she'd been in someone else's bed a few hours earlier. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't shut off. The weight fell off me. Sleep disappeared. I was living with my wife, and with her affair at the same time. You don't feel alive in that space. You feel like a ghost haunting your own life. Out in the world, cheating is a story other people tell. Guys at work make jokes about alimony, crazy exes, like it's all just material for a sitcom. I'd sit there stirring my coffee thinking, if you had any idea what's going on in my house. I thought about my parents. 30 years together. They fought, sure, but they showed up. My dad used to say, "You don't quit just because it gets boring." That sentence echoed in my head until it hurt. So I did what a lot of men do first. I blamed myself. Maybe I'd worked too much. Maybe I'd stopped flirting with her, stopped noticing her hair, her dresses, her little attempts. But every time I opened that folder, it was right there in black and white. She wasn't dragged into this. She drove herself. She started it. She kept it going. One night, staring at the ceiling, I drew a line in my own head. If she comes clean on her own, maybe there's something left to save. If she doesn't, it's over. I didn't say it out loud, didn't write it down, but for the first time I heard myself think it clearly. It's over. All of that. Months of pretending, collecting proof, drawing lines in my own head, led to one simple question in our living room. Beckett, why don't you want me anymore? Ava's voice cracked when she said it. Eyes swollen, mascara smeared, chest rising too fast. 3 years ago, that look would have broken me. That night, it didn't. I held her stare. No yelling, no pacing, no theatrics. You really want to know? I asked. She nodded quickly. I want to fix this. I want to save us. Tell me what I did. Tell me what changed. What changed? Those words almost made me laugh. I pushed myself up from the couch, walked over to the bookshelf. Top shelf, back corner. My hand closed around the manila folder that had been sitting there, waiting for this exact moment. I came back and set it down on the coffee table between us. The sound of it hitting the wood was louder than it should have been. Okay, I said quietly. Let's talk about the last 4 months. That was when her face really started to fall apart. For a second, she just stared at the folder like it might bite her. What is that? She whispered. I didn't answer. I just flipped it open. Page after page slid into view. Screenshots, email prints, hotel confirmations, Uber receipts, black ink, white paper, no way out. Color drained from her face. She reached for one of the pages with a shaking hand, eyes darting over the words. It's not what it looks like, she stammered. I almost felt sorry for that sentence, the most overused line in the world. So I started reading, not shouting, just reading. Last night was amazing. I can still feel you on me. When can I see you again? Same hotel? Same room? My voice was flat, like I was going through a grocery list. Milk, eggs, betrayal. I picked up one page, tapped the date with my finger. February 12th, company retreat. First time you met Jason at the riverside. I looked up at her. That's when it started, right? Her lips parted, but nothing came out. In that silence, something shifted. She finally understood. I hadn't just found out. I'd known. For a long time. She finally broke. The kind of crying that isn't pretty. Red face, shaking shoulders, words tripping over themselves. I made a mistake, Beckett, she sobbed. Just a stupid mistake. I don't even know what I was thinking. I sat there for a second, letting that word hang in the air. Mistake. I lifted my eyes to hers. A mistake, I said slowly, is forgetting to pay the electric bill. A mistake is saying something harsh in an argument you didn't really mean. I tapped the stack of papers between us. This is not a mistake. I spread the pages out. Hotel bookings, messages, photos, little hearts next to his name. Cheating isn't a slip, Ava. It's a series of choices. You chose to text him. You chose to meet him. You chose to lie to my face and then go back for more. Her breathing hitched. These, I said, pointing at the evidence, aren't mistakes. These are decisions. I leaned back, feeling something inside me finally harden into clarity. You didn't slip, I finished quietly. You walked into this, over and over again. Right after I said it, she lunged across the couch like she could still close the distance with touch. Beckett, please, she cried, grabbing my hand with both of hers. I know I screwed up. I know I did. Just give me a chance to fix it. I'll do anything. I'll cut him off. I'll go to therapy. I looked down at her fingers wrapped around mine. I used to know those hands by heart. That night, they felt like they belonged to somebody else. Slowly, I pulled my hand back. Not yanking, just reclaiming it. Don't, I said. Don't touch me. Not like this. She flinched like I'd hit her. I'm your wife, she whispered. You're supposed to fight for me. I shook my head. I fought for us when I thought we were on the same team, I said. But I'm not going to compete for my own wife. I let that sit. I still have my self-respect, Ava. And I'm not going to trade it just so you can feel better about what you did. Her eyes filled again. Mine stayed dry. I never stopped loving you, she said. Like that sentence was supposed to fix something. I let it sit for a second. Love. That word used to mean everything to me. In my head, love was simple. You show up. You're loyal. You're honest. We're a team isn't just a cute line on a wedding day, it's how you live. So I asked her, calm as I could, is that what love looks like to you? Deleting messages at 3 a.m, lying about meetings so you can see him, walking into a hotel under our shared last name, and checking in with his? Her face crumpled. I leaned forward. When you were in that hotel bed with him, I asked, did you think of me at all? Even once? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out, just tears and silence. I nodded. That's what I thought. I wasn't yelling. I didn't need to. Whatever that was, I said quietly. Whatever you felt with him, it wasn't love. Not for us. And for the first time, I think she finally understood what she'd killed. She started reaching for explanations like a drowning person grabs for anything that floats. I felt invisible, she said. Everything got so routine. We were getting older. I didn't feel wanted anymore. I didn't know how to handle it. I listened. I didn't roll my eyes. Didn't cut her off. I owed myself that much, to hear exactly how she dressed this up in her own head. When she was done, I nodded. Okay, I said. Fair enough. You felt invisible. Things got boring. You were scared of getting older. I took a breath. You know what? I'm not going to pretend I was perfect. I let our marriage go on autopilot too. I got comfortable. I got tired. I stopped trying as hard as I used to. Her eyes flickered with this tiny hope. But here's the difference, I continued. There were other options. You could have talked to me, we could have gone to counseling, you could have said, I'm unhappy, hell, you could have left me before you cheated. I held her gaze. Instead, you chose the one option that needed zero courage. My voice dropped. You threw away everything we built, for hotel rooms and secrets. There wasn't a good answer to that, and we both knew it. At some point, the words just ran out. There was nothing left to argue about. I don't need a pretty story, I said. I don't need you to dress this up or tell me you were lost or confused. I just need the truth, and I've already got most of it. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, whispering my name like it was a prayer. I stood up. I'm leaving the city for a few days, I told her. I'm going to Logan's cabin in Wisconsin. When I come back, I want you moved out of this apartment. Panic hit her eyes fast. She grabbed my arm like I was the edge of a cliff. Beckett, no. No, you can't. Are you really ending this? I looked at her one last time. It ended the day you chose him over us, I said. Tonight is just me accepting it. I walked down the hall to the bedroom. She stayed in the living room, sobbing, calling my name. I closed the door behind me. That soft click sounded more final than any shout. On the other side of that wood, her knees hit the floor. I barely slept. It wasn't rest, more like my body shut down from exhaustion for a few hours. At sunrise, I got up, showered, threw some clothes into a duffel. Jeans, hoodies, nothing that reminded me of us. The apartment was quiet, too quiet for how much had just died in it. I went to the kitchen, pulled out a pad of paper, and started writing. Ava, I've transferred next month's rent. Take whatever furniture you need. Dishes, photos, whatever means something to you, keep it. My hand stopped for a second, then I added the only thing I really wanted. I just want one thing, the truth. Write it down, every detail, every moment, every reason why. Leave it on the table when you go. You owe me that much. I set the note in the center of the table, put a pen beside it. I grabbed my bag, took one last slow look around the place we used to call home, and walked out. In the elevator, staring at my reflection in the metal doors, one thought hit me hard. If I can't have honesty while I'm with you, I'll take it on paper when you're gone. I wasn't there to see it, but later, I read every word she left on that table. From that, I know exactly how her day went. She sat at the same kitchen table where I'd written that note. In front of her, a blank notebook, a pen, and the kind of silence you can't run from. She called in sick to work, turned her phone face down. For hours, she just stared at the empty page, like writing the first line would make it all real. The first sentence she finally put down was this. It started at the company retreat in February. She wrote about the hotel ballroom, the cheap conference coffee, the too loud laughter. About Jason Cole, the guest speaker from New York, funny, charming, disarming in all the ways I apparently wasn't anymore. And then she wrote the line that stopped me when I read it later. I liked the way he made me feel. Not, he was a good guy. Not, he meant something. No. She liked the way he made her feel. That's where it really started. Not in February. In that sentence. Her pages didn't read like an accident. They read like a slow, deliberate slide. She wrote how it began as just work, sharing marketing ideas, swapping articles, trading little jokes about clients. Nothing physical, nothing obvious. Then the texts got later. Midnight, 1 a.m. Talk shifted from campaigns and numbers to stress, loneliness, feeling invisible at home. Jason knew exactly what to say. He told her she was brilliant, funny, undervalued. He noticed the things I used to notice and had gotten lazy about. He played the part perfectly. In her own handwriting, she admitted, "For the first time in years, I felt young, desired, interesting." That's the hit she kept chasing. Dinner, to talk about a project. Drinks, with colleagues. The little lies she fed me while getting ready in our bathroom, putting on lipstick I thought was for me. At the bottom of one page, she wrote, I told myself it was harmless. It wasn't. And then the sentence that burned, I knew exactly what I was doing the night we crossed the line. She didn't trip. She walked. Step by step, straight into it. By the time I got to that part of her notebook, my hands actually stopped for a second. This was the line. She wrote about a late dinner with Jason in River North, how it was just two coworkers talking about campaigns, how one drink turned into three, how the conversation slid from work to marriages, to divorce, to not feeling seen. I could almost hear it. The music, the half-dim restaurant, the two of them playing the "no one understands me like you do" game. Then she wrote about the parking garage, how he walked her to her car, how he hugged her goodbye. A little too long for professional. She admitted, in ink I'll never forget, I should have pulled away. I didn't. He leaned in, and I kissed him back. Then the sentence that punched me in the throat. That's when I cheated on you for real. Not in her head, not just in messages. Right there, in that concrete garage in River North, my marriage crossed a line it could never uncross. The next pages read like a script for a show I never agreed to be in. She called it compartmentalizing. Daytime, Ava Ward, wife of Beckett, marketing manager, coffee runs, meetings, dinner at home. Nighttime, the secret version, the one who checked hotel rates and blocked out late meetings on her calendar at the exact same times Jason was in town for work. She'd schedule him in the same slots she told me to go ahead and eat without me. Then she'd come home, step back into the role, set her bag down, kiss me, ask, how was your day? Like she hadn't just spent the afternoon in another man's bed. She wrote that sometimes when her hand brushed mine, guilt would flash through her so hard she felt sick, but she kept going anyway. At the bottom of one page in smaller handwriting, she admitted, I convinced myself I could have both. And then one line that summed it all up. I turned our marriage into a stage. I was the actress. You were the audience who didn't know the script. Reading that, I realized I hadn't just lost a wife. I'd been watching a performance. When I say I read her notebook, this is where I was. I drove out of Chicago with the radio off, just me and the sound of the highway. Past the suburbs, past the outlet malls, into Wisconsin where everything gets quieter and the sky feels bigger. Logan's cabin sits near Lake Geneva, tucked back under the trees. We've used it for fishing trips, stupid guy weekends, nothing serious. This time, it felt like a place you go to bury something. Inside, it was still. No dishwasher humming, no phone buzzing, no Ava walking from room to room. Just wood, dust, and my duffel bag. I put my phone face down on the table, pulled her notebook from my bag, the one she'd left on our kitchen table under her wedding ring. For a long minute, I just sat there staring at it. Part of me thought, if I open this, whatever's left of us is gone for good. Then another part answered, what us? I took a breath and opened to the first page. I thought knowing the details would kill me. Turns out, not knowing had already been killing me for months. I read it in chunks, because taking it all at once felt like trying to swallow glass. She wrote about the retreat first, the overly bright conference room, the fake enthusiasm, the moment she noticed Jason actually listening when she talked. She described me too. Her words, not mine. Beckett was tired a lot, quiet, distant, always worn out from work. I could see myself in those lines. The guy coming home late, scrolling on his phone, saying, I'm just wiped, we'll talk tomorrow. She wasn't wrong about that part. What got me wasn't that she didn't understand herself. She understood herself a little too well. She knew exactly she was lonely, restless, hungry for attention. She knew she liked feeling wanted. And still, every time that pen moved across the page, it was clear she aimed all of that at the easiest outlet instead of the hard conversation sitting right in front of her. I felt this strange split inside me, a small part that almost pitied the version of Ava before all this, and a much louder part that was just disgusted. At one point I heard myself say out loud, to an empty cabin, you weren't lost. You were selfish. There was a section in that notebook that hit harder than the screenshots ever did. She wrote about how she felt with Jason. In her own words, with him I felt alive, young, reckless, free. I just sat there staring at that sentence, because if with him she felt alive, then what did she feel with me? Old, stuck, numb. I started replaying our life in my head. Friday nights with Netflix and takeout, me half asleep on the couch after a long week, her in sweatpants, scrolling her phone. I'd told myself that was comfort. Home. Safety. Sitting in that cabin, I had to ask myself a hard question. Did I make home feel like a cage without even noticing? And the honest answer? Maybe I did. Maybe I let things get too quiet, too predictable. Maybe I stopped making her feel chosen. But even with all of that, there was a line. I closed the notebook for a second and said it out loud, just for me. I might have failed to keep things exciting, but you're the one who failed to keep your vows. Both can be true. Only one destroys a marriage. Then I turned the page and found the sentence that finally broke me. I don't know when it would have ended if you hadn't found out. Read that again. She didn't say, I was about to stop. She didn't say, I came to my senses. She basically admitted she might have kept sleeping with him indefinitely, while I kept paying bills, cooking dinners, planning anniversaries with a woman who'd already cashed out. That thought punched the air out of my lungs, because in that moment, I understood. I wasn't saved from a one-time mistake. I was pulled out of a life where I would have stayed the loyal idiot in the background. My throat tightened. My eyes started burning. I'd held it together through screenshots, hotel rooms, even the part where she said she felt alive with him. But this? Knowing she'd still be doing it if she hadn't been caught? I dropped the notebook. Knees hit the cabin floor, hands over my face, and I just broke. Ugly, shaking, chest-ripping sobs no man ever wants anyone to see. Somewhere between gasps, it came out of me, from a place I didn't even know existed. Why wasn't I enough? And for the first time, there was no answer I could pretend to believe. At some point, the tears just stopped. Not because it didn't hurt anymore, but because my body ran out of ways to leak it out. I ended up flat on my back on that cabin floor, staring at the ceiling like it had answers written on it. 10 years. 10 years of birthdays, bills, stupid inside jokes, road trips, Christmases. None of that was coming back, no matter how many times I asked, Why wasn't I enough? And that's when it hit me. I could spend the next 10 years stuck in that same question, or I could get up. Those were my options. Let this define me as the guy who got cheated on. Or let it be the moment I drew a line and said, this is not where my story ends. I thought about Logan, about my parents, about the friends who'd pick up on the first ring at 2 a.m. if I needed them. I pushed myself up on my elbows and said it out loud, just to hear it in the air. I'm not just a man who got cheated on. I'm more than that. She broke my heart, but she doesn't get to break my future. And that sentence felt like standing up, even before I was on my feet. The first thing I did after that wasn't some big dramatic move. I picked up my phone. Logan's name was already at the top of my messages. I stared at it for a second, swallowed what was left of my pride, and typed, "You still got that guest room?" He called instead of texting back. Didn't even let it ring twice. "You good?" he asked. 3 words, but I heard everything inside them. I didn't give him all the details. Didn't have to. He already knew enough to understand the shape of it. Ava, Jason, the affair, the notebook. There were pauses, but they weren't awkward. They were the kind of silence men use when there's too much to say and not enough throat to push it through. "Come stay with us when you're back," he said finally. "You shouldn't be in that apartment alone right now." For a second, I almost argued. Said I was fine. Made a joke. Old habits. Instead, I just exhaled and said, "Yeah, okay, I'll take the guest room." After we hung up, I sat there with the phone in my hand and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not happiness, not peace, just not alone. My marriage died, I thought, but my life didn't. People still love me, and that realization might have been the first small piece of myself I got back. Back in the cabin, once the crying stopped and the shaking faded, I did something very undramatic. I opened my laptop and Googled divorce lawyers in Chicago, picked one with decent reviews, made the call. She walked me through how it works in Illinois. "No-fault divorce," she said. "You don't have to prove adultery. You just have to say it's irreconcilable." It bothered me for a second, because I could prove it. I had enough evidence to wallpaper the courthouse. But as she kept talking, assets, timelines, forms, I realized something. I didn't actually want to destroy Ava. I didn't need to torch her life, drag Jason into it, or stand in front of a judge listing every disgusting detail. I just wanted my life back. So that's exactly what I told the lawyer. "I'm not here to get revenge," I said. "I'm here to get free." We did the paperwork over email. Names, dates, signatures. 10 years of marriage turned into PDFs. When the draft was ready, she wrote, "Whenever you're ready, sign and send." I sat there for a solid minute, cursor hovering over the button. Then I clicked send, and just like that, on paper at least, I'd stepped out of my own marriage. While I was gone, she did what I asked. I know, because when I came back, the apartment felt hollow. I wasn't there when she packed, but I can picture it from the way things were left. Closet half empty. Her side of the bathroom counter cleared. No more makeup, no more hair ties around the faucet. A few of her favorite books missing from the shelf, but most of the furniture still there. She could have stripped the place. She didn't. Later, Chloe told me Ava refused to take much, said it felt like stealing from a life she'd already wrecked. But the thing that hit me hardest was on the kitchen table. Right in the center sat that same notebook, the one I'd asked her to fill with the truth. Thick now, heavy with everything she finally admitted. On top of it, she'd placed her wedding ring. Just a simple band of gold, lying there on the story of how she broke what it was supposed to mean. No note, no flowers, nothing cute. Home had officially turned into a place. She'd closed the door behind her knowing she wasn't just leaving an apartment. She was leaving me for good. Driving back into Chicago felt strange. Same skyline, same traffic, different man behind the wheel. When I opened the apartment door, the first thing I noticed was the quiet. Not the tense, waiting to explode quiet from before, an empty kind of quiet. Like the place was finally admitting what it really was. 4 walls and a lease. I dropped my bag and saw them on the table. Her notebook. Her ring. I didn't touch them. Not right away. I walked slowly through each room instead. Past the couch where we watched 100 movies. Past the hallway where we'd argued about nothing and everything. past the bed where we'd shared 10 years and lost all of it. It felt less like coming home and more like visiting the funeral of a life I used to live. Eventually, I went back to the table. I picked up the ring, turned it in my fingers once, then set it in a small box in the drawer. The notebook went on a high shelf in the closet. Not the trash, not the table. Away. That chapter is over, I said quietly. That night, I slept alone for the first time in years, and for the first time in weeks. I didn't cry. I didn't stay in that apartment long. A week later, I packed what I needed and moved into Logan's guest room for a while. His house was loud in all the ways mine wasn't anymore. Kids arguing over cartoons, dishes clinking, his wife calling out dinner times. It hurt and healed at the same time. We'd sit down to eat, and his little girl would ask if I wanted extra mashed potatoes like it was the most important question in the world. I'd forgotten how good it felt just to belong at a table. During the day, I buried myself in work, took extra projects, stayed late. It was easier to fix broken systems than a broken heart. Nights were harder. I'd lie there in the dark guest room, thumb hovering over old messages, sometimes scrolling through them, sometimes finally hitting delete. After a couple of weeks, I realized time alone wasn't going to fix this, so I made another call I never thought I'd make. I booked a therapist, once a week, non-negotiable. In one of those early sessions, I heard myself say words I'd never said out loud before. I don't know who I am without being her husband. And that was the real work I knew I had to start. My therapist kept saying the same thing. You need things that are just for you. So I bought a used bike. Nothing fancy, just something that wouldn't fall apart on Lakefront Trail. First ride, I thought my lungs were going to quit. But there was something good about that kind of pain. Clean pain. Legs burning, wind off the lake hitting my face, Chicago skyline on one side, water on the other. For an hour, I wasn't the guy whose wife cheated. I was just a man trying not to die on a hill. I started sleeping a little better after rides. Food tasted like something again. Then I signed up for a night photography class at a community college. Always liked taking pictures, never took it seriously. That's where I met Sarah Miller. She noticed I only shot in black and white. One night, looking at my photos, she nudged me and said, "You know life has color too, right?" For the first time in a long time, I actually laughed. Not the forced kind, a small, real one. And slowly, my evenings stopped being about trying to forget her and started being about remembering me. The court date came faster than I expected. Cook County Courthouse, gray, crowded, people lined up to end what they once cried starting. Ava was already there when I walked in, neat, composed, smaller somehow. We nodded at each other like coworkers before a meeting. Our case was simple. No kids, no house, just a decade of shared history the state of Illinois didn't need to hear about. The judge asked a few standard questions. Is the marriage irretrievably broken? Yes, Your Honor. We signed where we were told to sign. Initialed boxes we didn't read twice. Pens scratching paper, lawyers checking off lists. And that was it. Divorce granted. 10 years reduced to paperwork and signatures. We walked out onto the sidewalk. Cold Chicago wind hit us both in the face. People rushed past, carrying coffees, briefcases, grocery bags. The world completely unfazed by the fact that our whole life together had just been dissolved in under 20 minutes. We stood there for a second. No hug, no screaming match, no dramatic goodbye kiss. Take care, she said. You too, I answered. Then we turned in opposite directions and just walked. It was a random Thursday night when her name lit up my phone again, weeks after the courthouse. I just stared at the screen for a second, thumb hovering. Part of me wanted to block the number and move on. Another part knew I needed to see what she had to say. The message was short. Jason and I aren't together. It fell apart within weeks. I destroyed our marriage for nothing. You deserved better. I'm so sorry. I read it twice. You'd think I'd feel vindicated. Like some part of me would cheer, see, it didn't last. But I didn't feel that. I just felt sad. Sad for the waste. Sad for what we could have been if she'd chosen differently. I typed back, Thanks for telling me. I'm doing okay. I still deserve someone who chooses me. No anger, no opening, just the truth. Then I added one last line. Goodbye, Ava. And this time, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a threat. It was exactly what it sounded like. The end of the last thread between us. Sometime later, I found myself sitting alone in my new place. Same city, different walls. I'd painted the bedroom navy, a deep, calm color I chose for me, not us. I sat there, looking at those walls, replaying everything. The red flags I brushed off, the nights I felt something was wrong and swallowed it, the way I kept telling myself, it'll pass, we're just in a rough patch. For a long time, I called myself the guy who got cheated on. Like that was my whole identity now. But somewhere between bike rides, therapy sessions, dinners at Logan's, and quiet nights in this Navy room, the label started to shift. I wasn't just a victim of a bad chapter. I was the man who made it out of it. I'd learned to say no, to draw lines, to choose myself before I bled out trying to keep someone else warm. And here's the part no one tells you. Real healing didn't start when I forgave her. It started the moment I thought, I forgive myself first, for not seeing it sooner, for staying too long, for being human in the middle of all that pain. That's when the weight finally got a little lighter. Sarah and I never started seeing each other. It wasn't like that. It started with small talk after class. She'd pack up her gear slow, I'd be fighting with a tripod, and somehow we'd end up walking out to the parking lot together. One night she told me about her own breakup. 4 years with a guy who treated commitment like a joke. I told her I was recently divorced, but I didn't give her the highlight reel. Just, she cheated, I left. She didn't press. Just nodded like she understood more than she said. We began meeting up on weekends to shoot the city. Sunrise over the lake, alleys with old brick, people on the L. It was easy. No pressure, no flirting Olympics. Somewhere along the way, I noticed something important. I could talk to a woman without feeling suspicious, angry, or small. One evening as we were packing up, I said, "Just so you know, I'm not ready for anything more than friendship." She smiled. "Good," she said. "Then let's just be two people trying to enjoy life again." And honestly, that sounded perfect. One day I glanced at the calendar and realized 3 months had passed since the divorce was final. 3 months. No dramatic breakdowns in grocery store aisles. No drunk texts to Ava. Just life. I still had my job. I was actually doing well at it. My body was stronger from riding. I had Logan's family, a couple guys from the cycling group, and this unexpected photography friend who liked to mock my obsession with shadows. I caught myself one night sitting on the couch, scrolling my phone and realizing I hadn't checked to see if Ava texted in weeks. The thought didn't hurt. It barely registered. The future didn't feel like this giant dark hole anymore. It felt open, unwritten, a little scary, sure, but not in a bad way. I thought about the man I'd been 6 months earlier, quietly dying in his own marriage, afraid to admit what he already knew. Then I thought, I actually like who I'm becoming. For the first time in a long time, I felt something settle in my chest. Not dread, not anger. For the first time in a long time, I feel like my life is mine. Sarah dragged me to this black and white gallery downtown one Friday night. "Your kind of thing," she said, moody and dramatic. We wandered past portraits and street shots until we stopped in front of one photo. Just a tall building casting a long shadow over an empty street. No people, no cars, just light and dark wrestling on concrete. Sarah tilted her head. "What do you see?" she asked. I stared at it for a while. "At first, just a shadow," I said. "But the longer I look, the more it feels like the shadow is what makes the picture worth anything. Without it, it's just a bright, boring street." I realized I wasn't talking about the photo anymore. My life had a big damn shadow across it now. Betrayal, divorce, all of it. But standing there, it hit me. The darkness didn't erase the rest of the image. It was part of it. "Endings and beginnings," I said quietly, almost to myself. "They kind of look the same from here." Sarah glanced at me, then back at the picture. "Yeah," she said. They do. And for once, that thought didn't scare me. After the gallery, Sarah shoved her hands in her pockets and said, "Coffee? I know a great spot nearby that doesn't taste like burnt office drip." Old me, the version still living in that Lakeview apartment, would have said no, made an excuse, gone home to stare at the ceiling. This version checked the time and realized there was nothing to rush back to, and for the first time that felt like freedom, not loss. So I said, "Yeah, coffee sounds good." We sat in a small corner shop, city noise buzzing outside, talking about cameras, light, places we wanted to shoot someday. New York rooftops, deserts, tiny towns with neon motel signs. At one point she told a stupid story about tripping over her own tripod, and I laughed, really laughed, loud enough that a couple at the next table glanced over. It caught me off guard. That sound used to belong to another life. Now it was here, in this one. I'm not in love. I'm not over everything. There are scars that will probably never fully fade. But sitting there with a warm mug in my hands and a future that didn't feel like a sentence, I realized, I'm okay. And for where I've been, that's a big deal. So that's it. This isn't just a story about getting cheated on. It's the chapter that forced me to rebuild a man I didn't even know I'd lost. People like to say love is magic. It's not. It's work, it's courage, it's showing up when it's hard, not when it's exciting. And yeah, I wasn't perfect. But cheating? That's not a flaw. That's a decision made one lie at a time. She gave away what was ours. But here's the part she couldn't take. My ability to love again. My right to choose better. My future. If you've lived anything like this, listen carefully. Someone breaking you doesn't mean you stay broken. Maybe she ended my marriage, but she didn't end me. And if you're hearing this, maybe you need to hear this too. You're allowed to start over. You're allowed to choose yourself. If you were in my place, if you were Beckett, what would you have done? 1. Forgive her. 2. Walk away. Comment the number you choose. I want to know how men really think.